how can those interested in content engineering start to build interest and support internally? And how do we communicate the value that it brings so that training programs are built around these skills inside of companies and inside of educational institutions?
So I think if you want to sell something like this, content strategy and content engineering, what I see in the German market and the European market is that people start focusing on the business cases that bring the quickest and the best wins. And this is usually the service use case. So if you want to reduce tank top time, so the time that the service engineer spends solving a specific case, or the hotline employee spends on solving a problem with the game or whatever, you name it. And these are the use cases where you can actually earn money with intelligent content, and this is the way to sell them. Work with the UX professionals, set up a user voyage and user journey and try to solve that. And I've seen scenarios also with German companies where they charge for intelligent content in the framework of improved service, and that's a good way to go.
Oh, to actually turn it into revenue.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, okay. That's what they do.
And thoughts on getting content engineering built as more of a sponsored practice inside of businesses, and also where do we find more content engineers? There's not enough of us.
No. And I think Eric is correct in that we need to build a business case, that we need to show value, we need to show expertise, and having built a lot of recognition for a lot of different roles and things like that. Talking about it, we're here in a panel talking about it at conferences, helping others to get interested with it. Conveying to management that these activities are important, which goes back to the business case. Recognizing that education in a certified facility, university, college, those sorts of things take time. It takes a lot of time for those to be built, created, and even find the people to teach them. That can be challenging. Because you're taking people out of necessarily the practitioner field. But at conferences, having workshops at conferences, looking at what are all the related things. So we talked about ontology. Take some taxonomy courses, learn about different types of technology. You talk about Web 2.0, Web 3.0, that sort of thing is like, what are those technologies, and understanding it and being able to bring that to the table, saying, well, I have this expertise and this makes me somehow different from someone else, and this is where the value of my expertise comes in. So talk, share, keep communicating the importance, and it will eventually grow, though it does take time.
Thanks, Ann. Yeah, you've seen a lot of the changes, and I mean, with content strategy, probably the exact same thing. And all of a sudden, you woke up one day and content strategy was everywhere. So, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people were talking about it for a lot of time, and private conferences, Christina Halverson and people like that putting together conferences and continually talking about it until it flowed to other areas. And I think we have to do the same thing with content engineer and making sure, if it's not a whole conference, that we at least have pockets in which we're talking to that role and knowledge and capability.
Yeah. And Carolyn, your ideas?
It's actually a problem we're trying to solve on a daily basis. I think the challenge is certainly, even though there's much wider recognition of what content engineering means in certain industries, you're right, it's not it's not something that there's an academic program for. And so what I find interesting is that where I'm at right now, we have a lot of people express interest in our company. We have a lot of people express interest in our role, which I think is encouraging. So people see what we do. We're interacting with content strategists, content developers. The people, though, that I find interesting is the people that seem to be most enthusiastic about this role are people that are in those editorial types of roles. The people who actually are authoring, licensing, developing content. And then I work obviously heavily with a lot of software engineers, and they kind of have their pick of problems that they want to solve. And so I find that they are interested in our problems, but it's a little harder to recruit from that realm. So the challenge that we have is actually to try to figure out how to take the people that have the fundamental understanding of content and what it takes to create content, and the problems that people have creating content and the problems they want to solve about that, so the content developers and strategists, et cetera, and find an educational or development path that allows them to build the other technical skills that they would need to do the role. So we're actually in the process of trying to figure out what that looks like here at Cengage, because it's not for lack of interest. It's just a little bit difficult to figure out how to carve that path for them, and it's not by sending them to college right now.
Right.
It's figuring out how to develop that internally and how to give the teams that they would need to partner with enough runway so that they can actually spend the time to help them develop those skills.
Yeah, but the interest is there, and that's good to hear that the folks that the engineers are working with, some of them within the authoring environment or ancillary disciplines, are saying, hey, that's interesting. So that's a good way. Aaron, any thoughts on that?
Quickly, yeah, content engineering is the Wild West professionally and directionally, right? I don't think anyone watching should pretend that it's a well-developed discipline with well-developed standards behind it. It's not. Where my experience is that everybody is making this up as they go. A little bit less entropy moving forward than there has been, but there's still a long way to go before we get to the level of, properly describing this. I think that a lot of content engineering is related to knowledge engineering, but there's a lot of different stakeholder groups that need to get involved in the exercise and that play different roles. And that also relates back to the question of getting buy-in and seeing it, the practice grow within the enterprise. It's important to, as was mentioned, editorial. It's important to content strategy. It's important to data science, and we've got a lot of interest in it. Solves problems that you can't otherwise solve for data science to have structured content. It solves delivery problems. And there's really no other solution besides this sort of approach in the contemporary internet world that solves all those problems that otherwise you find yourself siloed in that. I'll just note too, there is a little bit of a carrot stick, and the stick is, are you able to address these different platforms, these different environments, these different requirements, and increase, if you're in the Web 2.0 world where you're producing stuff for websites, okay, how are you making it on to smart speakers? How are you making it on to console display mechanisms? How are you producing the same content for your website and transforming it so you can use that same content on your app as devices and approaches proliferate? It's increasingly the only solution to producing that sort of content efficiently.
Yeah, the stick is, it's getting to be more and more obvious to folks as just adding a channel. Just let's add one new publishing channel and let's get our content out to that channel. And if we amplify what we're doing now to get content into the one or two channels we're already maintaining, adding a channel is exponentially more work. But if it's engineered, it is possible and plausible that that happens at what, 10% of the time or less. So you end up with significant barriers to market without being able to engineer content. So I think that the necessity will also drive interest because these problems are needing to be solved, right? So the content engineers, I think, that are self-educating and moving forward, even in the Wild West, I think will have a lot of career opportunities, you know, and
For sure.
for the coming decades.
To listen in on the full roundtable conversation and others, plus get access to more exclusive insight about omnichannel customer experiences, join the content order for free at simpleA.com.